John DeWint bought the house. Now, DeWint was a very wealthy plantation owner from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. He had moved up here as kind of a retirement investment. And most of the changes that took place in the house were done by John DeWint. Now, of course, in the 90s, we did a restoration on the house, but our goal was to make the house as much as what we could as what Washington saw when he was here. And while Washington made this house his headquarters 4 times during the American Revolution, in 1780 he came here to inspect fortifications along the Hudson, and the second time was when he came here for the trial of Major John Andre and the Benedict Arnold affair, which is covered in that program you talked about, Turn. And then the third time he met in this house with the British commander, Sir Carleton, to discuss the terms of surrender and the evacuation of the British troops. And the last time he was on his way to West Point and he got caught in a snowstorm and was snowed in here for several days. And that was the 4 visits of Washington when he made it his actual headquarters. And how we know that is we actually have letters written by Washington stating headquarters at Tappan, so we know that this is where he was. The floorboards you're standing on are the same ones that Washington walked on when he was here. We had to do a restoration on the house because we found termites in it. So when we took these floorboards up looking for termites, we pulled all the nails out, straightened them out, and used them over again, so the nails are the original nails that are in the floor. We did everything to keep it as it was. Now, the Dutch have settled here their entire life revolved around the Bible. So if you look closely at those tiles, you'll see that they're all scenes from the Bible. Now, those maps are similar to the maps of Washington and Sir Carleton. Carleton was Washington's counterpart in the British Army at that time. They met in this room at the end of the war to discuss the final terms of surrender and the evacuation of the British troops. The 2 sketches are copies of sketches that Major John Andre made when he was being held prisoner in the old 76 house over here. And the originals of those are in Yale University. This room was the original kitchen. And if you look in that hole, that's the original brick floor that was put down in 1700. And that floor still exists under this wooden floor. Now, when John DeWint moved in here, they call it the DeWint House because he owned it when Washington was here. That's why they call it the DeWint House. It was always called the old headquarters, but it was a private residence. And it was bought by a man in the 30s, and of course that was Depression times. And that gentleman had lost it for taxes, bought it back for taxes, and then in 1932, the Grand Master of Masons heard about it, was visiting in the area, came over and took a look at it, the old headquarters, took the money out of his own pocket, put a binder on it. Then he went down to New York to our headquarters and talked the Masons into taking a mortgage out and buying it, which I'm very happy they did. So originally they kind of fixed it up. And then when we discovered the termites, it was determined that we should do a complete restoration on the house. And then we added this kitchen in the 90s. And like I say, this is our interpretation of the kitchen that John DeWint had, because there's no pictures of the inside of that kitchen, what it would have looked like. The bricks that you see on the house and on the front are the original bricks that were brought over as ballast in the old sailing ship from Holland. And of course they had to put ballast in the wooden sailing ships to hold them down. They brought them over and they had to unload that ballast so they could take goods back to Europe.
That's cool.
And they just stacked them on the piers, which became a problem. But there are guys like DeWint that are building a house out here in the nowhere. Now he could get free building materials. So he floated them up the Hudson, and down behind those trees is a creek that empties into the Hudson. He was able to float the bricks right to Tappan on a raft or a shallow bottom boat.
That's cool.
Now, the lower portion of the house on 3 sides is natural fieldstone. And this is called Rockland County for good reason. because all you got to do is dig a hole and you got all kinds of building material. And that's what they used on it. And these are all natural field stones right from the area. Well, the further you get into it, the more possessive you get of it, you know? I mean, after all, it was Washington's headquarters. It took a very important role in the history of the country. And I mean, yeah, it's a great place to live, and you're entrusted with it. So to me, it's just become a way of life.